Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We're live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios on another beautiful day here in Old New Orleans. And of course, got a lot to talk about over the next hour. We'll talk a lot about what's going on with the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll talk Saints. We'll also talk a little bit about what's going on with Tulane. What's happening with the LSU baseball head coaching job. We'll get into that. Indianapolis is losing the combine. Could New Orleans be on that list? And of course, the brand new voice for the New Orleans Saints. And we'll talk about that and breaking it down for us, one of the best we have in the city. Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports is our guest. Fletch, welcome to the show. Good to have you as always. And before we get started, I always like to let folks know a little bit about what's going on over at your neck of the woods, Channel 6, right down the block over there on Howard Avenue.
It's true, we share a street.
Yes, we do.
I don't know what the address is here.
Yeah,
I know we're
3900.
Okay, well, we're 846,
right.
so we're just a little ways away. Everything's going well. We are moving back in, gradually getting everybody back in now that hopefully we are moving past the pandemic. And so business is usual, which is nice, as we get back to a sense of normalcy.
Yep, and of course, normalcy when it comes to the Pelicans right now is kind of out there. First of all, before we really got into the meat of it, Stan Van Gundy, looking back at the season, did you see this coming? Again, him being fired after, 8 months, 72 games, and of course at a time when you really needed to have some stability within the franchise, where now it looks very, very unstable, especially after the bombs that were dropped by the Athletic last week.
Yeah, I would say I don't think anybody saw this coming a year ago at this time. And a year ago, I mean at the end of last season.
Yes.
The time frame is off, but they obviously fired Alvin Gentry at the end of last season, took 2 months and did an exhaustive search for a head coach. Felt like you had to get it right for Zion Williamson after saying that Alvin Gentry made a connection with Zion and his father, and you gave him an extension. And then less than a year into that extension, you fire him, and then you go in the opposite direction. Alvin Gentry is one of the most likable coaches in all of sports, a true players coach. Old players, young players, white players, black players, everybody loves Alvin Gentry. But he is a loose kind of guy. He is a go-along, get-along guy. There's not a ton of discipline and structure to what he does, and that works sometimes. I mean, that's what they do in Golden State. Not to say Steve Kerr's not structured, but he is a player's coach for all practical purposes and lets them do their thing. So the Pelicans bring on Stan Van Gundy because they want to get away from that. They want discipline, structure, old school kind of this authority figure, if you will, which seemed good for a young team. and it just was a disaster. I mean, he had no buy-in from the young players. The veterans that were here never really bought in, sleptwalked through the season. Guys like Eric Bledsoe was a total disaster. So, 2 swings and 2 misses for Team Executive Vice President David Griffin. He's on strike 3 right now, and to paraphrase Scott Kushner, who we had on last week, I'm stealing his line here, there will not be a strike 4.
Right.
That Gentry was strike 1, Van Gundy was strike 2. David Griffin is getting the opportunity to hire his 3rd head coach, or not hire. He re-upped Gentry, hired Griff. This will be strike 3. He's got to get it right for his own sake, because there just won't be another opportunity. If this doesn't work, there'll be a new executive in charge, rebuilding the franchise once again.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. All right, what happened? Philosophical differences that were uncovered over time. Some again have talked about that that Griff was maybe a little meddlesome. Okay, wanted a little bit more, wanted to get involved in the day-to-day on court. Again, he's talking about the new coach wanting to do a collaboration with the front office. What happened there? I mean, from a standpoint between the front office and the head coach, and then of course we'll talk about what happened between the players and the coach as well. But the front office and the coach first.
So I go back to last year. I like David Griffin. I think David Griffin is a really smart man and really great when it comes to positivity and creating culture. I mean, you can't listen to this man speak and not say, you know what, I think I want to be a part of that. I mean, he could sell ice to Eskimos. I do think the way he operates, though, is a little bit different. You look at the New Orleans Saints. Mickey Loomis is a tremendous executive. He's hired Sean Payton. They signed Drew Brees. They've made good signings through the years. He manages the cap maybe better than anybody in the NFL. He's not in the locker room. He's not hanging out. He has boundaries. Coach does this. GM does this. We are a collaborative effort, no doubt about it.
That's right.
But there are certain lines. David Griffin operates in a different way. David Griffin is around the team at practice. He does talk to the players. He is engaged. I wrote an article last year saying that David Griffin, Alvin Gentry was a convert to how David Griffin wanted to operate, and David Griffin needed a true believer. I felt like last year they needed to go in with a younger coach, somebody who could be indoctrinated to the way David Griffin operated. Trajan Langdon is around, Swin Cash is around. They believe in a we see each other. I'm not in the shadows hiding and you do your thing. And that's just not how we work. That's not how he operates. So I do think there's a different approach. And I don't think that he and Stan Van Gundy, he and Alvin, I know, there was a shift there in their relationship where they were not seeing eye to eye. I don't think Stan Van Gundy ever felt like this guy is too meddlesome. I do think Stan Van Gundy joined a collaborative effort knowing what it was. I do think in the end, though, Stan Van Gundy was not on board with that anymore. And I think Stan Van Gundy felt like, I'm entering next season with a lot of pressure. That if we start 3-7 in the first 10, I may be out. And if I'm going to be out, let's just do it now. And I think that's where they came to an agreement. Sure, that maybe you're not quite the true believer I need. I felt like last year, Becky Hammond was my choice. But Wes Unseld Jr., young assistant. Ime Udoka, who just got the job in Boston, young assistant. Jacques Vaughn. There's a ton of, Darvin Ham, ton of young assistant coaches who are deserving head coaching positions. That's where I thought they should have gone last year. Are they going to go there this year? And maybe that's what maybe they say, we should have done this last year. That's going to solve everything. I just don't know. Joe Sherman, when I played for him in college, he told my brother something. My brother was an infielder, a shortstop. And he made an error, and then he picked it up, and he had a good arm. So then he tried to make up for it, and then he threw it over the first baseman's head. And Joe Sherman goes, let me give you the simplest rule in life. Don't turn one error into two. I don't want David Griffin trying to fix last year's error to turn one error into a second error, and that's what I'm afraid they may do. So I can't wait to see what they do, but I'm just not sure what direction they go. Last year I was dead set. Hire the young assistant coach to grow with your young team. That's the way to go. They didn't do it. Do you hire the young assistant this year when there's more pressure from Zion and some of these guys to win? Or do you go get a former head coach that's been there, done that, or a former player that has, more credibility in the league that they will respect right away, like a Chauncey Billups? Again, it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
I'm going to get to that in a moment. Let's talk about Van Gundy. And from his standpoint, coming in, a guy that's a teacher, a guy that's a demanding coach, in a COVID-19 year where you had the restrictions and you didn't have the chance to practice. You didn't have a chance to be able to get them guys on the court. All they really got from Van Gundy was the shouting Van Gundy telling them what they could and couldn't do. They never had a chance to really have the Van Gundy. They could take them in the gym, break them down, and teach them how to play defense, teach them how to be pros. How fair was it for Van Gundy coming into this deal if you weren't going to have some patience? And then on the flip side, if you're Griffin, why are you bringing in a guy that definitely needs practice and needs all those things in order for him to be a successful coach?
Look, I agree with you. And the thing is, hindsight's always 20/20.
Right, no doubt. But that wasn't, I'll be honest with you,
Sure.
Fletch, we talked about it on the radio show. That wasn't hindsight back then.
No.
I mean, again, he was that type of coach that needed those things to be successful.
Yeah. And again, I do think that hurt him. That had he been able, had COVID not happened,
Right.
and Alvin Gentry would have been fired in April, and you could have hired him in May, and he could have been through summer league. He could have had these players in
Right.
for workouts. He could have gone out to California where some of them work out. It just would have been a different dynamic.
No doubt.
All his principles could have been in place. And I also think he's the guy. He needs, and you and I talked about this before the show started. Christian Clark with NOLA.com, the Advocate did a really great article. Tom Thibodeau, Stan Van Gundy. I mean, literally the parallels are eerily similar. Old school defensive-minded coaches who can grind players, who do things their way. Tom Thibodeau was the NBA Coach of the Year. They finished 4th in the East. Stan Van Gundy's team finished 10 games below 500. They finished 11th in the West. Tom Thibodeau had a team with his players, guys like Taj Gibson, who were with him in Chicago and Minnesota, Derrick Rose, who was with him in Chicago and Minnesota, all veteran players. I mean, even a guy like Julius Randle is now in his 7th year in the league. And even the younger guys, he wasn't forced to play Obi Toppin, who he didn't play a lot. Mitchell Robinson was hurt, for the better part of the year, who's from the New Orleans area, and he didn't have to worry about young guys, and he had buy-in from veterans. Van Gundy had, J.J. Redick was his player, the guy he coached back in Orlando. And J.J. Redick, we learned didn't want to be here basically from the get-go.
Right.
And then Eric Bledsoe was the veteran leader that was coming from the Milwaukee Bucks, who obviously, didn't want to be here coming from a championship contender to a younger team. So no buy-in from the veterans, no practice time. It was all a recipe for disaster. Had it been Tom Thibodeau, we would be talking about how quickly the young players bought in and how much these veterans helped. It just didn't.
Right.
The veterans didn't buy in. They didn't help communicate to the younger players. One thing I was told is Stan needed a locker room lawyer, is that he needed that veteran presence to talk to these younger players, to yell at these younger players, to lead these younger players. But he always had to be the guy doing it, pointing it out in film study, pointing it out at practice, yelling at them, not being able to be kind of the good cop to the veteran player's bad cop.
Right.
He always had to be the bad cop from day one, and it just never gelled with this young team.
Well, remember when Griffin brought in Bledsoe, when he brought in Adams, when, again, he went out and got J.J. Redick in free agency, culture driving veterans. And that just didn't materialize, especially with Van Gundy.
Right. I mean, obviously, J.J. Redick came in a year before.
Right.
And I do think it was fine for Alvin Gentry to have a guy like J.J. Redick.
He flourished under Gentry.
At least right away, he struggled to find his footing.
Right.
Because he said the offense was just too loosey-goosey.
But
there was no structure. But eventually, he found a nice role. And right before COVID, he was playing pretty well.
He really was.
And then in the bubble last year, he was the guy who cared the most. I mean, those games, you could see this is a veteran who wants to win. Like, if the younger players were watching him, that's what they needed to see, is a guy like J.J. Redick playing hard in the bubble for games that meant something. But then with Van Gundy getting here, J.J. Redick, I think, has obviously hit that point in his career where the decline is happening pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then did he want to be here after the Drew Holiday trade? No. And then, look, Steven Adams, I think, wanted to be here, but he's just kind of he's just this free-spirited kind of guy that is not going to be that outspoken leader. So you needed to have Bledsoe and Redick be your locker room lawyers, so to say, and lead this team. And for various reasons, it never happened. So look, it was a disaster.
Yes.
And it's a strike against the organization, and
No
it makes
doubt.
them look dysfunctional. And if I had to line up all 30 NBA franchises right now, I still think the Sacramento Kings are the worst organization in basketball, no doubt about it. Minnesota's pretty bad with the ownership deal they're dealing with right now. They've made the playoffs once since 2007 when Garnett left, or since 2006. I would say they're second worst. The Phoenix Suns were right there, but the Phoenix Suns have now had quite the resurrection with Monty Williams and Chris Paul going to the playoffs for the first time in more than a decade. So I would say probably New Orleans and Detroit are in a battle for the third worst franchise in the NBA right now, because you've been blessed with some great assets. Anthony Davis, Zion Williamson, and you just can't put the right pieces around them.
Yeah.
So right now they look like a dysfunctional mess.
It didn't help last week when the Athletic article came out, and of course, it was talked about that the Zion's family was not happy with Van Gundy, felt he was too rigid and demanding, felt that the organization did not live up to what they felt was the standard for a star like Zion, that they reported, again, dysfunction within the Pelicans organization. That doesn't look good when the guy that you brought in was supposed to be the stabilizing factor for the organization in David Griffin.
Yeah, and look, I'll say this. I have two schools of thought on these Zion comments. I understand Zion is a unique entity in the world of professional sports. That most of these guys, when they're that young, you don't hear the chirping right away because they still have a lot to prove, and they still, that first contract in the NBA, if you get the rookie max extension, it is generational wealth for you and your family. We heard some of the same, like talking, which I thought was stupid back in 2015. Anthony Davis was drafted in 2012. In 2015, he was eligible for an extension. There were some national people going, maybe he won't sign it. And at 12:01, 1 minute into being eligible for it, he signed the richest deal at the time in NBA history, $145 million fully guaranteed. He didn't wait. That's generational wealth for him and his family. LeBron took that deal. Kevin Love took that deal. Chris Paul took that deal. Kevin Durant took that deal. Every great player has taken that rookie extension. And then when it gets to be around 6 years, 7, that's when you start to hear, oh no, have we done enough? Anthony Davis forced his way out in year 6. LeBron left after year 7 in Cleveland. Durant left after year 7 in Oklahoma City. Kevin Love was traded after year 6. Chris Paul forced his way out in year 6. Year 2 is pretty early to start hearing the chirping, knowing that Zion has no real path to getting out. The Pelicans could just say, hey, we don't care. Play or don't play, but we're not going to give in to these demands. Zion is different because he signed the richest deal with Nike since Michael Jordan. The richest deal with Gatorade, or the richest deal with Nike since LeBron James, the richest deal with Gatorade since Michael Jordan. I mean, he has generational wealth now that he maybe has a little bit more oomph to his demands. The one thing I'll say about that, though, and this is the other path that I go down, is if Zion has something to say, then say it. I agree. Here's the thing. Don't hide behind your family. Because, look, Zion has now become one of the 15 best players in the NBA. There's no doubt in my mind. Right now, if you stacked up, there's not 15 players better than him. He's not one of the 5 best players yet, but he's probably 13, 14, or 15 in the entire league at 20 years old. That's how great he is right now. If you want to say something, then say it, because I can assure you, you know who spoke for LeBron James at 20 years old? LeBron James spoke for LeBron James. Without question. You know who spoke for Kobe at 20? Kobe spoke for Kobe. So if you want to say something, then say it. I'm not like daring him to say it. Just don't hide behind your family of, oh, maybe Zion isn't happy. If Zion's not happy, then Zion should say he's not happy, and I want more of a winner out here. So I kind of compartmentalize some of those family comments because, you know, it's a family member talking to a reporter anonymously. We don't know if it's his stepdad. We don't know who it is. So, again, in year 2, I feel like it's not something that I pay as much attention to.
And I would go a little bit further than that. I would say in year 2 that even though Zion is one of the best players in the NBA, he's a one-dimensional player right now. He's a guy that can only shoot in the paint. If you go look at the advanced stats, not a lot of shots outside the paint. A guy that needs a lot, has to get in the gym and work, has to get in the gym and lose some weight. I mean, there are a lot of things Zion's got to do to be, again, the next great superstar in the NBA. I'm not saying, again, he won't get there. I'm just saying right now he's a one-dimensional player. Now, I get he's got the cachet, first overall pick. You talked about all the endorsements. Again, he's the face of the franchise. He maybe is the future face of the NBA. But again, he also has some work to do to be able to hone his game to get better.
Yeah, and I would disagree with you a little bit. I don't know if he has to lose weight. I think as he is right now, he proved this year, because remember a year ago at this time, with the injuries, and, you know, there were a lot of naysayers. Oh, is he too heavy? Can he play it that way? Can he sustain? I think he quieted a lot of those people because he looked the same to me this year that he did last year, and he played a whole season, 35 minutes a night, and was this unstoppable force offensively. Where I feel like he's got to get better is he's got to expand his game outside of the paint.
Absolutely.
He has to create some type of jump shot or he'll just be Ben Simmons.
Right.
And
Exactly.
he also has to become an engaged defensive player. That he's still a terrible defensive player.
Right.
So to me, I don't care about the weight. The weight to me is not something I'm concerned about because he showed he can be a point guard at 285 pounds. He can get to the rim at 285 pounds. I don't feel like there's anything physically he needs to prove to me from a body standpoint, unless he shows up next year and weighs 350 pounds. But at 280 pounds, he's proven to me he can be an electric player offensively in the paint, and he's dynamic enough to handle the ball. Is he going to develop a shot? If he develops a shot, even if it's not a true three-point shot, if he develops a shot from the elbow or a mid-range jump shot, he's going to be unstoppable. And then defensively, Ben Simmons right now is getting crushed,
rightly so,
deservingly. But he's still an elite defensive player who guards 4 positions, and he's still an elite playmaker with the ball in his hand and a slasher. He just can't shoot and doesn't seem to want to shoot the ball. But Zion, I do think, is a unique talent. But in year 2, I feel like the does he want to be here, will he force his way out talk is a little premature.
Right. Actually, I compared and contrast both those guys on Monday and Tuesday on the radio show. Because if you look at them, both first overall picks, Simmons and Zion, 2 guys that came in with, again, a lot of fanfare. Also 2 guys that came in with, again, Zion around the paint, unstoppable. Ben Simmons is a guy that, again, at 6'10", can handle, has a great court vision, can pass the basketball. You mentioned a very good defensive player. He never worked on his shot. He didn't get in the gym and do what he needed to do to be able to, again, make himself a better player. Zion has to do that in this upcoming offseason. Look, I get it. Last year was tough. 85 games into his career, really a shortened offseason, coming off an injury. He's got to be with Fred Vincent. He's got to be working. We got to see a Zion that, again, his portfolio of skill set needs to be able to expand in this offseason.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that all these guys work. But, like, do they develop? And so, to me, like, I don't think, Ben Simmons sits at home and eats bonbons and watches Netflix. I think that he's working, but he hasn't developed a shot. LeBron became great when he developed. Like, here's the thing. When LeBron came out, it was, what is he going to be? He's this physical man-child force. He became an elite defender. He became a reliable shooter. And that's why he's become the greatest player of a generation. If Zion right now is an unstoppable force in the paint, his first full year, amazing. Can he develop that shot? Can he develop into a great help defender? And then, yes, maybe he will become the next LeBron. Or he's going to be an offensive force in the paint, but will he be just a completely one-dimensional player that in the playoffs, if they ever get there, gets coached out of a game by another, just like Ben Simmons was when they couldn't put him on the floor in the fourth quarter? We'll see.
No doubt. All right, let's get to the next coach. I've said this is the most crucial hire in the history of professional basketball in New Orleans. It's got to be the right hire. I've also gone on the record as saying this can't be a novelty hire. You got to get the right person here. I know you've been a real advocate for Becky Hammon. You talked about Teresa Witherspoon. I'm of the opinion that Hammon has put in the work. She has been an associate head coach. She's been in that second chair. Witherspoon has not. Fred Vincent is getting a courtesy interview supposedly. Again, great shooting coach. But again, not where he needs to be on a bench in terms of again, the experience. They've got to get a coach that these young players will buy into. And again, I think you mentioned a little bit earlier, is it going to be an ex-player that, again, has got skins on the wall, or an assistant coach that, again, that can reach these young players? Because obviously, again, look, it's a different league now. Players run the league in a lot of cases. And you have some young players right now that, again, rebutted the coach that was here before. I mean, we're hearing it now all about Brandon Ingram tuned them out. Josh Hart wants to change the scenery. Zion wasn't happy about the Redick trade and what went down. Talk about who you think will be the coach, maybe a bullpen of coaches that again, may be on their radar as well. And if you would, elaborate on why you like Becky Hammon and Teresa Witherspoon.
Well, it's not going to be Becky Hammon, I can assure you that. Even though I like her, I do. So I remember interviewing Becky Hammon in 2008 at the All-Star game because she participated with Tim Duncan and David Robinson in the skills competition. And sometimes when you interview people, you just feel like, well, when this person has something, okay? And again, that's not the reason why they should be hired. But I remember the first time I met Sean Payton, when he did one-on-one interviews after being hired here in New Orleans, you just felt like, yeah, I see why I see why Green Bay was interested in this guy. I see why the Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas Raiders, were interested in this guy. I see why Bill Parcells is championing this guy. And I know it's easy to say that now because he's had success and he's won. But I remember they pulled everybody aside and let everybody do one-on-ones with Sean Payton in January of 2006 when he was hired. And you felt like, yeah, I get it. I get, like, this guy commands your attention. This guy seems like, and that doesn't mean everybody's going to have success. But I remember interviewing her in 2008 going, yeah, I see why she's a star. Like, I see why she's a great player in the WNBA. I see why she's this leader. So I remember when she moved into coaching in 2014. And I remember in that Vegas Summer League, people made a joke out of it. And I thought, I don't think this is a joke. I think these players are gonna connect. You just have a gut instinct sometimes. And again, sometimes it's right, sometimes. I thought Austin Rivers was gonna be the next Tony Parker. Sometimes you're wrong, okay? I was wrong with that one. But this one, I feel like I'm right. And I feel like when somebody gives her a chance, she's gonna be a really great head coach. She's gonna be Avery Johnson-esque. Avery Johnson won a championship. He commanded those players. She's going to be Steve Kerr-esque. Steve Kerr's won a championship. She's going to be Brett Brown, who took Philly from the process to the playoffs. These players are going to respond to her, and I think she's going to be a successful head coach. It just takes somebody to believe in when they give her a chance. If it's Portland this year, somebody's going to say, why did it take so long? I wish it would have been last year here in New Orleans. I think that would have been a great fit.
Could this a franchise afford to do this now with, again, third head coach?
No, not now. Not now. And for some reason, I don't know why they weren't on board with Becky last year. Didn't interview her, weren't interested. For whatever reason, they just didn't feel like it was the fit. I don't know if it's. I think Gail Benson is very open-minded when it comes to these things. She has certainly been at the forefront of changing the name of Dixie Beer when it comes to social causes and understanding, kind of reading the room, so to say, and understanding what's happening in the world of professional sports. I thought having a female owner, a real visionary leader like David Griffin, that Becky Hammond would have been a slam dunk hire last year, a young team, in a smart young team. Like, I think Zion gets it and knows what's going on, and it would have just been a great fit. I was told from the get-go, don't waste my energy. It's not happening. So it's not happening. I know it's not happening now. But I think that's one of the reasons why I get to Teresa Weatherspoon is I don't think as a coach she's as accomplished as Becky Hammond yet. She's only done one full season as a back-of-the-bench assistant. Becky Hammond's done 7 seasons from back of the bench to front of the bench to Pop's associate head coach. She's more ready to take over. But the players gravitated to Teresa Weatherspoon, and the buy-in in the NBA is half the battle. If the players don't buy in, like with Van Gundy, you're not going to have success. If they buy in, I'm all for Teresa Weatherspoon with go hire somebody like Terry Stotts as her associate head coach that can maybe help her out, and that would resonate with the players as well. But I do think it's probably going to end up being one of the younger assistants that they vetted last year and were right on the cusp. I know they were so close to a guy like Wes Unseld last year, Charles Lee last year, Ime Udoka last year, but they went with Van Gundy because I felt like, from Zion's perspective, they wanted the guy who'd been there, done that. They felt like at the end of the day, this is going to work, and it didn't. So I think that Jacques Vaughn, from what I have been told, is probably the front runner right now. So I would keep my eye on Jacques Vaughn, former head coach, young head coach with the Orlando Magic, probably too soon. Has now paid his dues even more as an assistant coach. So I think he's probably the leader in the clubhouse. If Chauncey Billups doesn't get the job in Portland, I think that Chauncey Billups is a guy, as a player, they will respond to him, even though he's only been 1 year as an assistant coach. And then Charles Lee, who I think is probably their fallback candidate, but who has a ton of assistant coach experience. I would look at those 3 guys and say one of those 3 is your next Pelicans head coach.
I would say this about Witherspoon or again, Fred Vinson or any assistant coach, and you know this. Look, it's easy as an assistant coach to connect with players because you're the assistant coach. Okay, you're kind of the conduit between the head coach and the team in a lot of cases. It's a little bit different when you're the head coach and you got to be making the call. And from that standpoint, is there a continued buy-in there? I think it's so critical when you look at this hire right now. Okay, who are these young players going to respect? Are they going to respect a next player that, again, has done it on a high level? Are they going to respect, again, a coach that, again, has done it already in the NBA, a veteran coach? Or are they going to respect that player that maybe has paid their dues as an assistant and is ready now to move into that head coaching slot? So it'll be interesting to see again how that plays out. And can David Griffin read the room on his players to know who's going to push the buttons to get these guys to be able to play at their utmost best?
I agree. And like I said, I mean, David Griffin joked very self-deprecatingly about he went back to his Cleveland days.
Right.
He hired David Blatt,
Right.
and then he had to replace. And let me say this: he read the room in that situation.
Right.
That LeBron and those veteran players did not respect David Blatt.
Yes.
They weren't responding to David Blatt. They
True.
were tuning him out.
Yep.
David Blatt, when they fired David Blatt, they were 30-10, and they had just David Blatt's first year. They went to the finals. Okay. His second year, they're 30-10 and in first place in the Eastern Conference, and he fired him and put Ty Lue in, and they won the championship that year. Then they went to 2 more championships, 4 straight championships, but 1 in 16, went in 17 and 18 with Ty Lue as the head coach. So David Griffin read the room properly and understood what his players needed. I think that's why he made the decision with Stan Van Gundy, reading the room. It was untenable going forward.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't untenable, it had the real strong chance of becoming untenable. So move on now. So even though he joked, I have not done a good job with hiring coaches, he didn't, I'll give him credit. He made a good move in Cleveland by moving on from David Blatt and hiring and promoting Ty Lue. Moving on from Van Gundy, who do you hire? Let's see if he's 2 for 2 with making a mistake and then fixing it and finding success. He did do that with Cleveland. Can he do that here? I would say it's going to be Jacques Vaughn. If it's not Jacques Vaughn, it's going to be Chauncey Billups. I still think they should give Teresa Weatherspoon,
move her up on the bench.
Well, let me say this. I still think they should look and say, if Zion has buy-in and these guys have buy-in, even if it's a little bit of a stretch, put some better coaches around her, like Steve Nash. Steve Nash was a reach. I mean, Steve Nash had never coached before. Sean Marks knew him from his days in Phoenix. I loved Sean Marks when he was here. David Griffin has a great relationship with both those guys. Sean Marks hired an inexperienced coach. He kept Jacques Vaughn, who was the interim head coach.
Yep.
He hired Mike D'Antoni, who was a longtime head coach. He brought in Ime Udoka, who was a hot name last year. He surrounded Nash with a great assistant coaching staff to make sure that he was insulated and had great success. If the Pelicans hire Teresa Witherspoon, make sure her staff is great, and I do think you could have success.
We're going to take a quick break here from our underwriters. We're going to stay with the Pelicans for a few minutes when we get into the next block. I want to talk a little bit about the draft. I want to talk about, again, what they're going to do with this roster. And then we're going to get into some LSU, some Saints, and some Tulane as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports is our guest. We'll be right back.
Air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhardt has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhardt's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhardt's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhardt's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports, WDSU, is our guest. Fletcher, The basketball gods did not smile on the Pels this past week. They have the 10th overall pick. No luck in the lottery. Detroit, Houston, Cleveland, Toronto, 1 through 4. They do have 4 second-round picks, 34, 40, 43, and 53. What do they do in this draft?
I think they're going to end up taking a player. I do think they're going to try to shop that pick.
First pick overall? First round?
First round, 10th overall. Yeah. The 10th overall pick.
Right.
I do think they're going to try to shop it. But this is the problem that I see. What team out there is selling? Like, you look at the West right now. The only team that's in a full-blown tear-it-down rebuild, Oklahoma City.
Right.
They've traded away everybody. All they want is draft picks. All they want to do is pick young guys, take as many shots that they can to develop. But the other 14 teams want to win. I mean, Sacramento wants to win. The Pelicans want to win. You look at all the teams that missed the playoffs. The Rockets, it's hard to figure out what they are. I mean, they still have John Wall and Eric Gordon,
Right.
and they signed a guy like Christian Wood. They wanted to win before James Harden derailed their season. So they probably want to win sooner rather than later. So if David Griffin is looking to try to say, who's a seller? Who wants to take pick 10 in maybe Eric Bledsoe and give me somebody back of worth?
Yes.
Is it Indiana? Well, no, they just hired Rick Carlisle today. And they have, Sabonis in Brogdon and in Karis LeVert and Miles Turner. They don't want to trade those guys for the 10th pick. They want to win now.
Yep.
Is it Toronto? Probably not. Like, OG Anunoby is a really good player. Pascal Siakam's a really good player. I mean, Fred VanVleet is a really good player. Does Toronto want to go back to Toronto next year in a massive rebuild? If they do that, I'd try to shop that pick in Siakam for Siakam with Bledsoe. But it's hard to find. Does Sacramento want to send, see, I think the 10th pick is too much for Buddy Hield. The 10th pick is probably too much for Harrison Barnes. But they want to win. So it's hard to find a team where you go, what team will give you, like, I think you can move Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe for somebody else's bad contract. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But the 10th pick has great value. Don't just give it away. So I think when the dust settles, they're going to end up using that pick on a player that they like, that hopefully can come in next year and maybe in some way, shape, or form give you solid minutes. Maybe it's Corey Kispert because the Pelicans need shooting.
Shooting bad.
And he's certainly a polished college player, having played 4 years at Gonzaga. Maybe it's Franz Wagner from Michigan, who seems to have a ton of upside defensively and shooting.
Yes.
Maybe it's the kid out of Baylor. I mean, maybe it's somebody from LSU. Maybe it's Cam Thomas out of LSU because he can shoot a little bit and he can maybe come in and give you minutes as a shooter off the bench. So we'll see. But I think they're going to shop it, but they're not going to give it away. So I would start looking at mock drafts right now.
Will Bledsoe and Adams be in a Pelicans uniform next year?
I think the odds are that Adams could be here. If Eric Bledsoe is back next year, it would shock me because, I mean, this is a guy who, when they played the New York Knicks on a Sunday afternoon, primetime national television game, made a boneheaded play. And afterwards, I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
He said, I wasn't paying attention in the huddle. That right there, you should have benched him for the rest of the season.
No doubt.
When your veteran leader says, I wasn't paying attention at the end of the game to what the coach was saying, right then and there, you should have just sat him. So
that was a microcosm of the entire season, all right?
Yes. So right then and there, I would say, of course, he shouldn't be here. No way, shape, or form he should be here. So I would hope he's moved, even if it's for another deadweight deal. Take somebody out. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Find another deadweight deal and just move on from him. Adams, if you put enough shooting out there, I could see his worth is a screen setter, as a rebounder, as a classy locker room guy that's still only 28 years old. But I think both of them are going to be shopped heavily.
Yeah, so do I. Let's shift gears to the LSU Tigers, and let's talk a little bit about the baseball coaching search. Glenn Guilbeau reported yesterday that the finalists for the jobs are Cliff Godwin of ECU, Jay Johnson of Arizona, Link Garrett of Notre Dame. No mention of Tony Vitello of Tennessee or Vandy's Tim Corbin. Well, a lot of people, again, that are following this think that was the reason why they have not signed a coach up to this point. Mike Bianco was the hot name last week. He's re-signed with Ole Miss. What do you think's happening there?
I think we talked about David Griffin, swings and misses.
Yes.
Scott Woodward has taken some big cuts. I love Scott Woodward, his big name hunting.
Sure, of course.
Look, when he was at Washington, hired Chris Peterson away from Boise State. When he was at A&M, he went and got Jimbo and Buzz Williams. His first thing at LSU, he goes and hires Kim Mulkey.
Right.
I mean, he is a big name hunter. That's what he does.
Sure.
Texas A&M has basically showed him how to do that, though. You go get Schlossnagle. You go put together an assistant staff with Nate Yeske and Nolan Kane and one of the best assistant staffs in the country. If he doesn't get Jay Johnson out of Arizona, Scott Woodward has failed in this search. And again, that doesn't mean LSU is going to be bad. LSU is one of the 5 greatest college baseball programs in the history of the sport.
Sure.
In the history of the sport, there's Texas, there's USC, there's LSU, there's Miami, and there's Florida. Recent history aside, those 5 programs in the history of college baseball are the 5 greatest programs in the history of college baseball. They're always going to be good. Jay Johnson is somebody that people don't talk enough about. You know, he's a West Coast guy, which is a little bit of a strange fit for me. But in his 6 years at Arizona, he's been to Omaha twice. He's played for a national championship. He's recruited great in Texas, in California. He is a fantastic coach. If they get him, well done. Job well done.
Right.
Can't fault you. If they get Link Jarrett, who I like, he's close to my age. I remember Link Jarrett when he was playing shortstop at Florida State. I remember him really well, and he's done some good things, but he doesn't have a great body of work. Cliff Godwin is a really solid coach who's dominated the American, and LSU would be a great hire. But those are your fallback coaches, and that's why Mike Bianco pulled out. Mike Bianco would have been a really good hire. All the old school alumni, Skip Bertman, all the old players, they wanted Bianco. You would have gone seamlessly. He's recruited the SEC. He's been, you know, to regionals every year at Ole Miss. He would have been a fantastic hire, but I think he was right to say, I'm nobody's bridesmaid here, bud. I'm either we're walking down the altar, we're going to the altar, and we're walking down here. You're not going to Omaha and putting me on ice. I'm just going to stay at Ole Miss.
Right.
So if Scott Woodward, who obviously wanted Vitello, who obviously wanted Corbin, who obviously I was told wanted the coach Chris Lemonis at Mississippi State, you missed on them all. He didn't learn from Texas. In 2016, the University of Texas had an opening. They went in there with all their, as T-Bob Hebert would say, their chest-pounding bravado of we're Texas, we've got money, we've got, you know, prestige. They went after Maneri. They went after Van Horn. They went after Schlossnagle. They went after the coach at Louisville. They went after the coach at Florida. They went after Corbin. And guess what? All those guys got raises and said thanks but no thanks. And they landed on Dave Pierce, who I love. Dave Pierce was great at Tulane, but he was their 6th or 7th choice. He's done a great job. He's in Omaha. But Texas looked stupid because they swung and missed on 6 guys. Scott Woodward's going to look bad because he has swung and missed on O'Sullivan, on Casey, on Corbin, on Vitello, on Lemonis. And if he swings and misses on Jay Johnson, he's going to land on choice 6 or 7. There's nothing wrong with that. But learn from these other schools. Like just learn and be better and just go get your guy. If it was Cliff Godwin, go get him right away. I get you have to take your swings at these guys. But that's where some of these people just get this inflated sense of self-worth of who and what their programs are. And so if he doesn't get Jay Johnson, I would say that Scott Woodward is going to have egg on his face. That doesn't mean he's not going to get a good coach. It just means he failed in the way he handled it.
Well, I get it. Look, and they look, Bianco parlayed it into an extension with more money, right?
Well, Bianco would have taken the LSU job.
Of course he would.
He just wasn't going to wait to be choice 3, 4, or 5, and he shouldn't. He shouldn't.
And Casey, to me, was a trial balloon.
Well, Casey was. O'Sullivan was their guy, but with a lot of, you know, extenuating, if that's the word, circumstances potentially
outside
involving,
of baseball.
With what's going on, potentially, maybe not.
Family members, everything.
There's a lot.
It was complicated.
There's a lot going on with him that he had to be moved off the table. With Pat Casey, I think they wanted that figurehead, 3 national championships, everything that comes with him. But because of what happened with a former player in a really serious child sexual abuse situation, it became, you know, a situation that LSU, with what they're dealing with, couldn't move forward with. So he's 0-2 right there. Then I think he was right to turn. If I could go buy Corbin, if I could go buy Vitello, if I could go buy Lemonis, and then obviously it didn't work out. He's got one more iron in the fire
Right.
with going to buy Jay Johnson away from Arizona, and I hope it works out. Again, I have nothing against Link Jarrett. I have nothing against Godwin. I actually think they would be I've been talking about Link Jarrett since day one for this job. But I just felt like you could have gone and got him on day one. You didn't have to go through the process that you knew.
Right.
Texas failed going down this route. What makes you think you can be successful?
Right.
It's like, we're LSU. It's like, or you're just the same as Texas, you know?
Right.
So.
Travis Jewett, unusual. We've heard nothing. And for one, the contract is up, right? And there's been no talk of, again, extending him yet. Or again, looking for other coaches. What's going on? Do you have any idea?
No, it's a very strange situation because his contract, from what I have been told, is up.
Is up.
Right. And obviously he got a pass last year. It was really sad.
Yes.
Tulane was off to its best start ever. Even the World Series years, they were off to their best start ever, and then COVID hits. And then this year, they get off to a pretty solid start. Let me say this, not a pretty solid start. They lost some close games against ULs.
Yeah.
They looked like they could have gotten off to a solid start. Then they found their footing. They were on the cusp of the top 25. They won a bunch of games in a row, and then they fall off the cliff at the end of the season. I just don't know what happens with him. It's hard to go forward, but then again, here's the thing. Troy Dannon is another one. How he's not on the hot seat is beyond me. Willie Fritz has been a fantastic hire for him. But, I mean, look, I remember Troy Dannon told all of us in the media, I come from Northern Iowa. I know basketball. I know how to fix basketball. Football is going to take me a while, but basketball is going to get right pretty soon. And you hire Mike Dunleavy and you become really, really bad.
Right.
And now you've hired Ron Hunter and you're no better. And now you get a chance to hire baseball coaches at one of maybe the bell cow sport for that program.
No doubt.
And you pass on graduates like Andy Cannizaro at the time and Matt Reiser, and you go hire Travis Jewett, and 5 years later you got no postseason to show for it. I mean, I almost wonder if he fires Jewett or just parts ways with Jewett, at some point the hot seat has to get hot for these hires,
Yes,
you know?
No doubt. And then if you do that, you better have a better coach coming back.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and you know, again, Tulane alumni would love to see Reiser, you know, in a Tulane uniform. You know, we'll see how that works out. Let's go to the Saints. Curious that they've made they've restructured Lattimore's contract, and I figured as soon as that got done, look, they had to pay the rookies. Obviously, again, they're slotted, but they would go out immediately and try to be able to fill that cornerback slot. And yet they have Drake Patrick come in, and we've heard nothing. Now, again, things are on hiatus, rightly so, with Sean Payton getting married this weekend, Ryan Nielsen getting married this weekend. But this, you know, predated that. Are you surprised they have not made a move yet to shore up the cornerback spot?
Yeah, and I'm surprised that some of these guys still haven't signed yet.
Right.
I mean, some of these veteran players, I think, are waiting. So I don't know if it's entirely on the Saints or as much as it is also on these players as well, that, like, what is Richard Sherman waiting for?
Yes.
What is, you know, Kirkpatrick waiting for? Look, the Saints, we know, don't have a lot of money to offer, but they can offer you playing time or at least the opportunity to compete right away with a young player like Paulson Adebo. Go for it. Come in. You got a team that's built to win. I mean, they're question mark at the quarterback position, but everywhere else is the same team that's won more games in the NFL over the last 4 years during the regular season than any other team. So I look at this and say, God, Richard Sherman has a relationship with Chris Richard or Chris Richard. You know, I think he told us you pronounce it Richard.
Yeah. Oh, he does? Okay.
Yeah. And so
I've said Richard forever.
So have I. And so, but when he spoke last week, he kind of cleared it up. And so I think it would be great for Richard Sherman. I think it would be great for Kirkpatrick to come in here. But I do think that's the one position you're going to see them add someone in some way, shape, or form before training camp starts.
Let's talk about the quarterback position. You've always been a big Taysom Hill guy. Still on that Taysom Hill bandwagon? You think he'll be the starter?
Yeah, I do. And look, I think it's going to.
Why?
But let me say this. My opinion is I am a Taysom Hill guy. I have been on Team Taysom since day one.
Day one.
Right. That doesn't mean anything, because it's going to unfold on the field. And anybody who tells you they know doesn't know. There's no one. Sean Payton doesn't know, and he'll tell you that. Right now, and this is great about Sean Payton, it's going to unfold on the field. If you remember, because you've covered this team a long time too, 2007, Sean Payton's second year, they traded up to draft Antonio Pittman, the running back out of Ohio State. They signed an undrafted player named Pierre Thomas. Pierre Thomas clearly outplayed him. They cut Antonio Pittman. Pierre Thomas is now in the Saints Hall of Fame. I truly believe every snap is going to be under the microscope. These preseason games are going to be unbelievably important, and they are going to go with the best man who wins the job. And right now, they don't know who that's going to be. I think they're excited to see what can Taysom do, what can Jameis do. And the players that are talking up Jameis don't know. And the players that like Taysom don't know. And in the media, we don't know.
Sure.
My opinion is Sean Payton didn't spend 4 years creating this quarterback in his secret little laboratory to have it not work out. That if Taysom Hill really falls on his face, he's not going to be the starting quarterback. Or if Jameis Winston comes out and is truly resurrected his career, he will beat out Taysom Hill. But I think all things being considered, I think Taysom has evolved enough. What he can do with the read option, what he can do on play action, getting outside the pocket, I just think he's going to give them an element that is going to be something that makes this offense truly dynamic. And I know Jameis Winston's big arm, and I know Sean Payton is an offensive innovator. But when you ask me my opinion is Taysom Hill's going to beat out Jameis Winston. But it's going to unfold on the field, and I can't wait to see it happen because no one truly knows.
Both Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton have said they don't see the holes that maybe other people see in this roster. You buying into that?
No, because that's what they have to say.
Right.
And the one thing I've loved about Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton is unwavering in his support. I mean, they supported Brandon Browner until they didn't, and they cut him 1 year into a 3-year deal. You know, they will support their guys unwavering. Like, they're smart, they buy in, we want them here. And that's good. You shouldn't turn on your players. That was one of Van Gundy's problems, is maybe he turned on these guys too much in the media, even though he ate it himself.
He did.
Right. Sean Payton never turns on his players, ever. He is unwavering almost to a fault in some of these guys. So when they say holes, they don't have a lot of holes. No. But the salary cap cuts they had to make eroded their depth.
Right.
That's where, to me, they hurt.
Yes.
That's what, look, they lost Drew Brees. They got great depth at quarterback. They lost Michael Thomas. They still had solid depth at wide receiver because Emmanuel Sanders was here. Well, if Michael Thomas goes down this year, who's the number 2 guy? I don't know. Right now at cornerback, they had young players or veterans. Well, they don't have those guys anymore. Even on special teams, they've lost. So, to me, the depth has eroded.
Linebacker, tight end.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, I really I think we all like Adam Troutman.
Absolutely.
But we don't know. They lost Josh Hill as a salary cap cut. They couldn't re-sign Jared Cook because he was going to be too expensive. So the depth, the offensive, Nick Easton, people don't realize how good of a backup he has been the last few years. Who is it?
I thought he played better than Ruiz at times.
I agree. But having that kind, when you have a first-round draft pick that you don't have to start because you have a backup who's so good, that is where they have taken a hit.
Yes.
And so, to me, I don't see glaring holes. I see holes in the backups, in the depth they have. So when they say we don't see the holes, they don't see the holes because they like the starters. But I think they know under the surface our margin for error when it comes to injuries or inconsistencies is not great.
And that was brought on by, again, yes, the salary cap being slashed because of COVID-19, but also the inability to be able to re-sign Ryan Ramczyk, Marshawn Lattimore, even though, again, with the arrest, or even, again, on Marcus Williams. You re-sign 1 or 2 guys like that to a long-term deal and make it cap-friendly over the first couple years, you're not in a situation where you're letting a lot of those guys go. You know, the Malcolm Browns, again, even there was talk yesterday that Loomis was on a radio show where he talked about the corner opposite Lattimore last year, and again Jenkins, and not letting him go if things would have worked out. And that's been the head scratcher for me. You're going to have to pay Ramczyk top tackle money. Why have you not done it yet? Because it would have opened up a lot of opportunity to hold on to some players that you let go, quality depth or starters.
Sure, and again, I think we all understand how important Ryan Ramczyk is.
Right.
I don't think Marshawn Lattimore needs to be paid like one of the top 3 to 5 cornerbacks in the league, because
he's a top 10 guy.
But he's really good, and when he's engaged, he's really good.
And he's the best one on your team,
without question.
And they don't grow on trees.
But again, if those players don't get the deals they want, again, it's a two-way street. Why would they just rush into a deal just to rush into a deal? Like, same thing with Marcus Williams. He could agree to a long-term deal at any point. He doesn't have to. He has to play under the salary cap, but Obviously, they don't like the deals the Saints are offering right now, and they are maybe betting on themselves a little bit and waiting for the Saints to cave a little bit. And historically, Mickey Loomis has gotten some of these deals done right before training camp or right at training camp or right in the start of the season. If you look at Kamara and Michael Thomas and Armstead, going back to Colston, Breeze's deal the week before training camp. But you're right. Couldn't you have got, like we knew in 2012, Breeze was going to be, Peyton Manning was 19.6, Breeze was going to be 20. It's going to be and they got that deal done. Why didn't you get it done in March? I don't understand that sometimes, and maybe it would have opened up more room and prevented it, but how and why they operate that way, I don't know.
No doubt. Quickly, because we only got about 2 minutes left. Combine is leaving Indianapolis. You know, at first I'm saying, man, New Orleans is a great place for it, right? But then I'm thinking, is it really a great place for it? Because, again, a lot of times there's a conflict with Mardi Gras. It's a 5-year deal that they're looking for. They're going to move it. I think it's going to be moved to Los Angeles. They didn't build that complex out there for nothing. But again, this is a walkable place, great restaurants. It's an economic impact of about $8.4 million for that. Do you think that New Orleans will be in the mix for the NFL Combine?
I think they'll be in the mix. I don't think they'll be one of the favorites for it. I agree with what you're saying, that SoFi Stadium is pretty great, and I do think getting it out to Los Angeles is a place that the owners, the coaches, the executives, and Indianapolis has had it for a long time, and I think they love having it in Indianapolis. I hate to see things leave places where historically they have become synonymous with, but I do think the fact that the NFL has floated this out there, I certainly think you look at springtime in LA. I just took a trip to LA and the weather's pretty great, and that stadium's pretty breathtaking. And so I certainly think that you're right in that that's what's going to happen.
Final question, got a minute left. Mike Haas, new voice of the New Orleans Saints. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I love Mike Haas. He's been great to me throughout my career. My father knew him. My dad was a professional golfer. Mike Haas played golf at James Madison University. I've known Mike Haas. He's one of the people why I got into this business, and has always been really great to me, great to my brother. So I love the fact that he's taking over. It'll be a job for a lifetime for him. So I think great hire, great guy. I think it's it checks a lot of boxes.
I think he's going to do a fantastic
job.
job.
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I really do. Fletcher, thanks for joining us as always.
No problem.
That's Fletcher Mackel of Channel 6 Sports. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, there are plenty of ways to be able to catch our program now. Of course, we're live streaming on WLAE-TV's YouTube page every Thursday at 1 o'clock as we go live after the Rosary here on WLAE-TV. 6 p.m. tonight, every Thursday night on WLAE-TV. 10 o'clock on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2 on Thursday night. Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelicans Sports Television. 10 o'clock on WLAE. On Saturday morning at 2 a.m. on The Deuce. And then we finish up on Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. on Pelicans Sports Television. Always at ericasher.com, always on the WLAE-TV YouTube page, and always on our social media platforms, at Eric_Asher on Twitter and Eric Asher on Facebook. Also, again, you catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM. That's 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com, also on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, and don't forget about our podcast on the Anchor app, but also on all the major podcasting platforms. Also want to thank our fantastic underwriters for supporting this program. Please go out there and support those underwriters. And also, again, thanks to Fletcher Mackel for joining us on the program today. Also, to the WLE production staff. They do a great job in producing this program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson. Also, Will Ingram, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back for next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. For Fletcher Mackel, I'm Eric Asher. We'll see you next week.